As I stand before the great black abyss of the void, I am reminded of the words of a great man who once said to me, "Son, we live a bit. We support Scottish independence. And then we die." And that's it. If you too believe in the credence of this great man, then you may wish to join nihilists for Scottish independence. Not only may you wish to join them, but you also may wish to purchase their merchandise, which can be bought now at teespring.com/stores/nihilist for indie. But if you don't, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters.
Hello and welcome back to the Angry Scotland podcast. I'm Chris and I'm joined this week by the loveliest libertarian you ever blocked on Twitter, Free Caledonia.
Yo.
And the genius behind Malcolm Tucker, Tucker 5 Law.
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about a game that's been developed for the Steam platform called Rape Day. I believe the game takes place during a zombie apocalypse and it's an interactive story narrative, and you will be given the option to rape people in it.
I'm not generally pro-censorship because I just think it's self-defeating. It generally just increases circulation, as the old saying goes. I do, however, feel that I'm entitled to say that absolutely everybody involved in the entire project is an absolute twat, and I'd like 10 minutes alone with them in a room with no windows with a sharpened pencil. Just saying.
I'm not convinced that it's a real game. Like, I mean, it might actually function, but I think a lot of these things are done just to annoy people and wind people up. And it is one of these ones where it's just like still images, isn't it? And you just kind of click through selections, or do you want to do this, do you want to do that? It's kind of a choose your own adventure type thing.
So is the interactive element what makes this disturbing? Because I'm thinking that, if you were to watch a film or TV show, you would just go with the narratives. It's the interactive element here that's causing the drama, isn't it?
I think so. You're quite right when you say that, rape crops up in films and books and things like that. But generally speaking, it's in the context of it being a plot point that's going to be talking about the recovery of a character or for instance, and like the accused, it's going to be covering the way rapes are tried and things like that, and it's actually almost for a social and moral purpose that we're discussing how these things happen, what happens to victims, what happens to perpetrators. None of these things apply to this. This is for thrills, it's for titillation. And that's objectionable. That's just genuinely objectionable. What if it did, though?
Because we are talking ahead of it. What if, in the context of the game...
Then I'd have no issue with it.
So that's what I was going to ask, was if in the context of the game...
It just didn't sound like it from what I was reading.
I mean, I'm probably giving the developers way too much credit here, but if there was some kind of plot twist where the player is called out for having done these horrible things,
then you're into it being morally acceptable in the same way that it is in films and TV and stuff like that.
There's probably a more realistic example in like the Call of Duty game where you're participating in a terrorist attack in a airport, and you can choose whether you want to like spray everyone with machine gun fire or you can just not do anything. So, I mean, that's a legit game that actually got bought by a lot of people and played by a lot of 12-year-old kids. So that's probably more of a quandary, because I think games are almost not heard of until someone creates a kind of fuss about them.
But it's an interesting conversation. It's a very dark conversation, but when you do think about it, if someone said to me point blank, if you had the choice between being raped or being shot in the face, which one do you pick? Like, which is the worst crime? And it's a bit unusual how the violence you've just described in that Call of Duty game just kind of went under the radar, no one gave a fuck. And yet when this, which is by comparison a fairly low budget game that is still images and you're just selecting story options, is like, whoa, fuck, this is disgusting. But yet in other games where you're encouraged to murder people often, you know, Grand Theft Auto is like, the whole purpose of it is to be a criminal and to do immoral things. Okay, the game mechanics do tend to play that, you know, the police come after you, whatever else, you know, you're punished for doing bad stuff. But it's just interesting how this one game, everyone went, fuck, that's horrible, you can't do that. But yet all these other pretty fucking horrendous crimes are just kind of seem to be okay. The other thing to discuss is prostitution in video games has occurred. I believe in Grand Theft Auto, I think it is possible to sleep with prostitutes. I don't know how that works. Is that technically rape? Because if the game doesn't give the prostitute the option to say no, like, how does that morally fit in to everything? And I just think it's this kind of undiscussed part of the human condition at the moment. I personally do not subscribe to the notion that video games cause violence or cause people to be raped or anything like that. Nonetheless, though, there does seem to be a bit of overlap between people that do commit violence and do rape and an enjoyment from some of the stuff. Who's going to buy this game? Incels.
Yeah.
When is the tipping point? Because at the moment, we have technology with video games where virtual reality is starting to slowly become more of a thing. You put on your silly wee hat and you use your PlayStation 4 to pretend you're in a jet fighter, and it's very immersive and 360 vision and all this type of thing. So in the future, if you could have a immersive Grand Theft Auto where you could basically do anything, murder, rape, all of it.
Or even an augmented reality where you can just
Yeah.
go down the street and point your finger at folk. And you get points every time you take out your finger.
So this is where, like, if it gets to the point where reality and fantasy start to blur completely, when do we have that discussion?
You've got something like kind of 1 or 2% of the population are actual psychopaths, and of the psychopaths, only a small percentage of them are violent psychopaths. They're the people that cause most of the trouble in the world, right? But something like 1% of the population has no empathy. Their prefrontal cortex, a controlling executive function, is poorly developed for whatever reason, usually genetic, and they lack empathy. That's what psychopaths literally are, and they are more likely to be criminal. There have been studies of psychopaths' brains, and it's really, really interesting, actually, because one of the guys that is the forefront of this study was doing MRIs of the brains of psychopaths compared to normal people and compared to doctors and things like that, having a look, and there's a clear and visible tell on the MRIs of psychopaths that a bit of the brain that controls executive function is poorly developed, and you can fucking see it on the scans. Yeah. Right? And he was looking at slides and he looked at one and went, fucking hell, that's a psychopath, and then discovered that it was his own. Did some family research, discovered that he was third or fourth generation relative of Lizzie Borden, who murdered her own parents, right? And that there was a long line of problematic people in the family. He was absolutely fascinated by psychopathy, hadn't realised that he was one himself. Now, he's not a violent psychopath. He's a really, really nice guy. But as he talked to his family, they went, yeah, buddy. Right? You know, it's your grandma's birthday party and you'll just go, no, there's a game on. And for him, because he's been reared well and he has had a loving family and a good education, comes from an affluent background and has always had a really steady life. It's never played out in criminality because he's been raised in a way that there's never been any necessity. And this is his view of it. He thinks it could have been very, very different for him, because had he been socially deprived in an environment where criminality was around him, he thinks that he could easily have become a criminal. He's aware of the fact that he's had a lucky break in terms of his upbringing. So it's a physical deficiency that plays out as a personal deficiency, but they are more vulnerable. They are more vulnerable to this. The problem that you have is, should all the rest of us not be entertained? I mean, I like watching thrillers. I like watching action films. I like watching Bruce Willis shooting people. Who doesn't, right? But I'm not going to go out and do that. A small percentage of the population is. With something like a game where the objective is just to rape as many women as you can, which seemed to be what they were saying it was, I would suggest that probably only people who are kind of a bit psychopathy would want to play that, because most normal people
This is what I was going to say, was, is there going to come a point in the future when, you know, games are more hyper realistic, it's more like augmented reality, and suddenly shooting someone in the face isn't quite so fun when you're showing the absolute repercussions of it?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot easier to deal with when it's kind of cartoony and ridiculous.
Yeah.
That stuff is a lot easier to understand. But I think also there's an argument to say that this stuff can be almost therapeutic in a way, that you're getting out your desire to drive a car at 150 miles an hour down the motorway in the wrong lane.
Yeah.
And all, you know, commit all these violent crimes. You know, you wouldn't actually do them in real life.
However, the only problem I would raise with that is that sort of behaviour is the kind of behaviour that triggers dopamine. In your brain, you've got dopamine and serotonin, and dopamine is short-term pleasure. Serotonin is kind of long-term being happy and content. Yeah. And the way your brain works, you can't have both of those things kind of firing at once. Serotonin sensors in your brain do not downregulate, but dopamine does. So the receptors in your brain that pick up dopamine downregulate, and what that means is the first time you do something that triggers dopamine, it feels great. The second time, the exact same amount of whatever it is, whether it's cocaine or chips or cola bottles or shooting somebody in the face in a video game, you don't get the same hit the second time, which leads to pleasure-seeking behaviour in terms of more exchange you're chasing. Yeah. Which means that potentially there's always the possibility that shooting somebody in the video game, just because of the way the brain chemistry works.
So basically, computer game developers have to keep making shooting people in the face more fun every year.
It has to become more violent. It's the same with think about the way pornography has changed. It becomes more and more and more extreme because people need more and more and more stimulation to reach the same. To get the same titillation value. You know, you're eating something and you get that kind of bliss sensation. You know, good chips. Oh, fucking yes, right? But you carry on trying to regain that bliss. Anytime you feel that sort of moment of, stop whatever it is you're doing. It's only downhill from there. It doesn't matter whether it's a line of Coke, right? Just that's you're done. You've had that moment of pleasure. Yep. It ain't coming back tonight.
I think as far as companies being responsible and banning things off their platforms, I would support that from the perspective of they have to do whatever is going to bring in some money and they don't want to go out of business.
Yeah.
So if it's bad for business, they've got to boot them, and that's the same for, you know, Twitter getting rid of like Alex Jones or.
Yeah, it's their platform. They're entitled.
Yeah, and they have to just do what their customers want them to do up to a point. Up to a point, though. I mean, I think they
yes,
do
but
need
remember,
to be responsible
we
about
as
it.
users of it are not their customers. We are their product.
That's true. Yeah. The flip side of that, though, is that doesn't stop the problem. What happens then is these people will find another way to get their views across, and probably it will then be much harder to stop them. So the next. But it will potentially be much less widely sort of proliferated. Well, for now, but I think probably most of like social media platforms, games platforms, the next stage will be ones that will be uncensorable. I think that's fairly likely.
Well, that's kind of what Steam are basically doing already. This is why this game exists or is about to exist. It's being developed. It's
like how Twitter started out. They said, we're a free speech platform. We're not going to boot you off or delete your stuff unless you break laws. But of course, if you're commercial, that can only last so long. At some point, you've got to just bow to like public pressure and commercial pressures and just do what people expect.
But
you to
evidently,
do.
they only do it when their business is at risk. Because I mean, if Twitter, Facebook, if any of these platforms had any fucking spine at all, they would never have allowed somebody as fucking batshit nuts as Alex Jones to be allowed on them to promote his shit, or Tommy Robinson or whoever else. So I mean, they only do it when the public opinion is so negative that they're in boycott territory where people are going to start walking away and they're going to lose business. So I think we're already kind of there. We're already, the internet. It has opened Pandora's box.
floodgates.
The floodgates now. Yeah.
Just that unintended consequence of being too illiberal about speech and all these types of things, that you're pushing it into a realm where you will no longer have any control.
Yeah.
I think that's partly the thing with the porn thing in the UK government's thing, where you have to like register your credit card and all that. You're going to have like 1 million 12-year-olds all in the darknet searching about for what they used to get off Pornhub.
Aye.
And finding a lot worse stuff. Even if there's like decent motivation behind it, I'm not sure there totally is, but even if you accept that argument, the way they've gone about it is just completely ridiculous.
My
It's just
feeling
unworkable.
is-
Break it down for people that don't know. Just give us a quick overview on what the situation is. With
It was meant to be 1st of April 2018, but they deferred it because they quite clearly weren't fucking ready, because it appears to be a government IT project. Who knew that wouldn't work? And it's that you're going to have to register
Your date of birth
and register with the site with a credit card, or register with some registry with a credit card to prove that you are who's who. So basically, the government's going to have a list of who's looking at porn and what kind of porn they're looking at. Who can see a problem with this?
Apparently, you can go into a newsagent and buy like a card,
A scratch card to prove
they
your
can verify
ID.
your age, and then you buy the card with some kind of code on it. And
So all that's going to do is that people will go in and buy those cards and then sell them to teenagers.
When I was in the RAF, when we'd go like down at the Falklands and things like that, places with no internet, memory bricks. That's how porn got distributed about. Basically, you arrived, there's the brick, have a look through it, copy what you fucking need, or whatever takes your fancy. And that's what the kids will do, because kids aren't fucking idiots. And the obvious way to get around it is your older brother. Oh yeah, my older brother John, I'll get him to download stuff for us, and then we'll put it on a brick and we'll pass it around the class. Get around it. The government are they're so fucking stupid at times. Like, think about what would you do if you were 13? How would you get around that? You could do it so easily.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I take it they've spent millions on this stupid project.
Almost certainly. The only thing I'm amazed by is the fact that Chris Grayling isn't in charge of it.
He's a right wanker as well, so you'd think he would be, but I don't know.
The other problem is it's putting all this data into the hands of these corporations, and there's one big one, I think it's called MindGeek, who owns most of the big tube sites.
Yeah.
Your kind of standard porn places.
Yeah.
And it's inevitable they're going to have a data breach at some point, and they're going to have the data of everything that every porn watcher in the UK has watched.
So you reckon it'll all go to the darknet then? And then the thing is, that'll then probably open up the darknet to people that would otherwise never have gone
bothered
on
going
it,
there.
because the porn, the porn leads everything. Like everything is basically driven by sex and the porn industry. Like even technology, by a lot of the kind of major leaps forward are based on developing dodgy sex tech.
The first thing that will happen, I mean, if they do this, there'll be a lot of people who'll just buy VPNs. But for teenagers who can't afford to buy VPN anymore, than they've got a credit card, prove your ID, scratch card, or whatever else, they're going to use Tor. It is counterproductive because it will just send teenagers onto Tor. Once you're on Tor and you start having a wee look around, the front page of Tor gives you a list of directories and things like that. You can start looking for directories of the darknet. I've used Tor, I've used onion sites, I've been on kind of bulletin boards for hackers and things like that, just as a matter of interest because I'm fucking nosy, right? And there's all sorts of horrible shit out there. There's links that you'll see and you just think, I'm not fucking hitting on that. And one of the kind of like a Google of Tor, which is just it's fucking so 90s, it's unbelievable. It's just a big fucking long list of links, most of which of them are broken. But there's links to all sorts of things like bulletin boards and discussions and things like that. And there's like a whole section, torpedo. Ah! And of course, if you can just fucking look up, oh, I want to see a blonde woman with big tits getting banged, right? People will Google for that. They'll find it. That's fine. But no, now we're making them go down the back streets.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly,
it's the same argument for everything. For abortion, for prostitution, for drugs, the whole of it. All you're doing is putting something that almost everybody uses into the hands of criminals. Well done, everybody. How does that always end up?
They've done this just at the point where you kind of knew the going on certain sites, like, there's not any dodginess. Everyone's of age. They're all like kind of paid.
Yeah, they're all getting
It's
health
all...
checks. Everybody's using a
Exactly,
condom.
yeah.
Everybody involved wants to be doing it. They're happy to be doing it. They're not fucking drugged up and mental.
Yeah.
It's legit.
Yes.
Right? It wouldn't be my choice of career, but if they're all right with doing it, who am I to judge? It's none of my fucking business. But now it's gonna be awful.
Yeah, well, it's the same in like you're kicking folk off Twitter and they're going to like Gab and sites like that. So it's just like you're sending folk into this sewer, this kind of cesspit of
Yeah,
garbage.
I know. On that one though, do you know what I mean? The people going there, they deserve to be in the sewer.
Yeah.
So fuck them.
Why is Paul Joseph Watson still on Twitter?
Why is Paul Joseph Watson? I mean, do we even need to ask?
It was the fucking like the mosque, the horrible mosque attack that happened to the Christchurch in New Zealand. When I clicked on Christchurch on the trend screen and scrolled down to see what was happening, and
there's InfoWars, man.
There's fucking doofus PJW. Of course, not tweeting about the victims and explaining about how the media were covering it all wrong and all these other reasons why, things have all been perceived incorrectly. And I just thought, he's linking to InfoWars. Like,
why is he still being allowed?
It's like you banned the owner of the site because InfoWars promotes bullshit conspiracy theories about shootings being faked and it's racist and everything else, and you kicked it off for that.
So I think
he's still there.
I don't really like, as you say, sort of deplatforming people for opinions, even horrible opinions. But if people are distributing things that are obvious untruths, fake news, that's another matter entirely, because that's like a public health concern. If somebody is, for instance, trying to say that the Sandy Hook massacre was a false flag thing and that those children didn't die, that's obviously not true. That isn't true. I've got no issue whatsoever with banning people who just openly advocate for false facts. That I don't have an issue with.
I was on Netflix the other night and I was watching the amazing Flat Earthers documentary, which if you haven't
I've heard about this. I need to sit and watch this.
Gold. The only thing I did notice though when I was browsing about for something to watch afterwards was that Netflix also hosts stuff like, was the moon landing fake? And I'm going, well, hang on, right? So we'll produce...
Or Cowspiracy, a film that's so factually inaccurate.
Yeah, there's a section that came up, beyond belief, and, well, yes, indeed.
It is, in fact. The clue's in the title.
I just thought, like, you've just, on the one hand, made this excellent documentary discussing how believing in clearly made-up shit is really harmful and whatever else, and made fun of it. And yet you've got an entire section on your website that is
full of bullshit.
And I'm going like, so yeah, who is gatekeeping what? Like, and that's where you go down. So if you say we have to deplatform people that suggest that Sandy Hook is fake, well, should we not also deplatform people who say we never went to the moon? Because in principle, okay,
but they might be right.
You see, that's where it starts. And it's like, but who decides? Oh, but they might be right when something is clearly made up, because it's not right. It has to just be down as it's not right. But that seems to be the wiggle room. Oh, but maybe. But like, no, but there isn't. There's no. But we went to the fucking moon. Like,
I know. I'm sorry.
I know. But I'm just saying.
I don't think that we did.
But that seems to be the mentality of Netflix and even Twitter to a certain extent, because the flat earthers and the the kind of hollow fucking moon and whatever else people are still out there. Obviously, it's the Sandy Hook.
Or the cowspiracy people. I really fucking hate the cowspiracy people.
The Sandy Hook thing is obviously particularly repugnant because of the subject matter involved, and I'm sure that's why the outcry has been so much stronger about that. However, in principle, though, to come back to your fake news point, it would seemingly have to apply to all the bullshit conspiracies of the internet. Which basically means the whole segment of Scottish nationalist Twitter is fucked. This fucking comes into force.
I suppose your dividing line is what can you prove is true, but oh Christ.
I mean, you can find like really obvious examples like Sandy Hook truthers and stuff like that, and that's the you can draw a line very easily there. But I don't know if you saw the Joe Rogan episode where he was talking to Jack.
I can't watch Joe Rogan only because of YouTube's algorithm, because Alex Jones was on his show once. So if you watch like one Joe Rogan podcast, your YouTube feed is besieged with right-wing recommendations. I'm just going to confess,
I don't know who Joe Rogan is. I've heard the name.
He is, I believe he used to host, if I get this right, he used to host Fear Factor. I was involved in that. And has then got into... It was a reality TV show from way back in the day. And I think then got into MMA commentary. Mixed martial arts, UFC commentary, I believe is his thing. And I think he's trained in it. And I think he knows how to do it. But I don't believe he's ever fought in the octagon. And is now dedicated...
I don't know what the octagon is either, just to be clear.
The thing they fight in. And
mixed martial arts.
I know, I've heard of mixed martial arts. I
don't watch this shit. I'm recounting what I believe.
I walk my dog, I cycle, and I row. This is me.
Does a bit of stand-up comedy as well, but his main thing now is he does this podcast, which is it's like 3 hours long every time. And he gets some good folk in to interview. Sometimes it can be interesting. A lot of time it's really crap. It's about MMA and like gets Alex Jones and like nutters in just for a laugh.
Well, he does things where he will bring in interesting guests. The downside to it is that he will bring on the fucking batshit conspiracy people. And his whole thing is, I'm just having a discussion. So like he's giving people a platform to just say their shit and he kind of reacts to it. Algorithm.
Like Louis Theroux, but with mixed martial arts.
Yeah, it did one of his podcasts. He had Jack. I don't know his second name actually. You know the guy that started Twitter.
Jack Twitter.
And Twitter.
To apply Donald Trump logic to this.
Yes.
was Jack
Twitter. That was brilliant.
Was it Tim Apple?
I love that so much, Tim Apple. Yeah.
I love the tweet.
Thank you, Donald Shitshow.
The tweet though. I think I actually only saw it because of the
where he tried to explain
the accidental partridge account. It was like, this is the most Alan Partridge thing I've ever seen. And it's like, I was trying to call him by his name. I also suggested that he owned Apple. The fastest way to do that was to call him Tim Apple.
In his brain, corporations are named after the person.
Because Trump.
Yeah,
that's just how he thinks. So even though he doesn't technically think that Tim Cook's surname is Tim Apple, it's just in that bucket in his brain where these things are kept. Yeah. It's Tim Apple.
Bill Microsoft.
Yes.
Or whatever it's going to be. Yeah.
Jack Twitter.
Yes. So what was Jack Twitter saying?
He must think he's named after his own hotel.
He was the first to do it, though. He was the first to pioneer that type of branding. That was, I mean, I don't want to say he had a success of it because he fucking hemorrhaged money and went bankrupt numerous times, but he came up with that idea.
He managed to make a loss at running casinos. An industry that is entirely designed to separate fools from their money, and he managed to be the fool.
Separated them.
There are no words.
So what was
not even the best words?
What was Jack Twitter talking about?
Jack from Twitter was on Joe Rogan, and he brought in his like compliance person, this lady, and they had some other kind of like YouTuber
that must
guy.
Be a job.
I know. So this other YouTuber guy was kind of, I think he's sort of right-wingy type guy. I don't really know who he is. He was like asking questions about like why did this person get banned? Why did they get blocked and all this? And giving them a real hard time about it. And you could see that actually their thought process that goes behind a lot of this stuff is kind of random. And they are just like picking things, people they don't like. And there is you can see that there's probably a tendency to be more interested in banning the conservative people who are like causing a problem. But I think that's probably because they are more obnoxious.
Because they are cunts.
But obviously, they do have like a left-leaning bias. It's probably true in most of these businesses, which is fair enough. But you can see how that could be a problem.
You say left-leaning bias, though. When you talk about left and right, like the right-wing mentality, if you just believe in small government, whatever else, like, you know, free as a libertarian, you know, like, we are friends and that's not a problem. It's a different like approach to thinking. I've not got an issue with that. What I do have an issue is when you start going into batshit nuts conspiracy land.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a left and right. It's just they're
There's a difference between reality and fantasy.
Yes, leaning more towards reality than fantasy. That's what I was just thinking there. Yeah, I don't think it's so much that, you know, they're anti-right wing. They're anti-fucking head case. And obviously the fucking head case tends to be attracted more towards right-wing politics because it is simpler. Though the thing about left wing is that it's inherently more complicated, you know, whereas the right wing stuff is just simplify everything.
Yeah, one of the things that they mentioned is the fact that folk in the right wing who are getting to kind of more extreme viewpoints tend to organise themselves very specifically into groups and have like more kind of a leadership kind of structure. Whereas,
well,
like,
that's because they're fascists and they like hierarchies.
Exactly, and your Antifa guys, they are completely the opposite. They're not going to have any of that kind of stuff. They're just going to show up. And,
fuck you, I
hit
won't do
people
what you tell
over the
me.
head with a brick and then run away, and they know, like, there's no structure to it or no organisation, so it's a lot easier for them to ban all these kind of right-wing things where you can say, oh yeah, actually that guy is the leader of that, he can get lost.
Yeah.
Well, it's the right wing tend to do a thing where they tend to dress up bullshit in a very professional manner. Like the Tories, this is the Tories in a nutshell. We are strong and stable. We are the party of fiscal responsibility. None of this is true.
No.
But as long as you turn up with a relatively nice looking suit and you've got quite a good accent and you've got a very professional looking logo, oh, this person must know what the fuck they're on about.
That's Jacob Rees-Mogg in a nutshell.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's all completely veneer. But and I just say that's why a lot of these right wing groups, that's they organise themselves in that manner. Because if you had a guy with like scruffy jeans, long hair, told you the Sandy Hook shooting was fake,
you'd go, whatever.
Fuck off. Whereas if you do it in a professional studio environment with a nice suit and a strong, convincing accent, maybe that idiot out there on the internet goes, but this person looks like they know what they're talking about.
Just to be clear, though, those descriptions don't match Alex Jones. I mean, Alex Jones is a fucking lunatic.
Aye, but he used to be funny lunatic. Now he's just an arsehole. He went on a journey between Alex Jones was the ultimate guilty pleasure if you were into politics, because it was just like, what the fuck is this guy on about? But then it shifted, I think, into this, like, basically around the time of Trump, because then it left this wee tiny world of InfoWars on the online, which you looked into for a bit of a laugh because it was so atrocious that you couldn't take it seriously. But then people started to take it seriously.
Yeah, it seemed harmless because he seemed like not a risk at all because he was just so out there. You would imagine this guy will never be anywhere near the reins of power. There's no one that will take this guy seriously, and then Donald Trump is on his show and then he's president and you're like, how did this happen?
But I mean, Alex Jones was banging on about the fact that he was on the phone to Trump, and apparently Trump is quite a big fan of Alex.
He has Roger Stone on all the time as well. They're pals.
But
Roger Stone. Do you know Roger Stone sells stones that he signed?
Did you see Trump signing the Bibles?
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's at the front cover as well. It wasn't even like on the inside bit where you're supposed to sign a book. And his signature is just, I know this is old news, but what is that fucking signature about? It's just like he just goes, looks like a fucking barcode.
It looks like the fucking drawer out from a cardiac rhythm, doesn't it?
It's like as a kid, he's asked his mum or dad, what is a signature? And I think his parents may have answered with, it's like when you write your name, but it's more squiggly, and he's taken that to its most literal conclusion.
You can't actually see any of the letters of Donald or Trump in it.
If you want to check if your Bible has been signed by Donald Trump is legitimate, you can just check his signature against all the checks that he sent to Michael Cohen to pay off prostitutes and porn stars.
I watched bits of the Michael Cohen testimony, and it was absolutely fantastic because the Republicans were all sort of hammering at him about the fact that he was a liar and that he'd lied to Congress and stuff like this. The fact that he'd lied on their behalf seemed to have fucking escaped him entirely. But I mean, bless him. And he's an arsehole. But I don't think it had occurred to them that his way of dealing with it would be to just fucking own it and take it. And he just sat there and went, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. But I'm not doing that now. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. There was absolutely nothing that they could do to dislodge him because he just fucking owned it all.
Did you not
made
find
no
that
excuses for himself. It was amazing.
Did you not find that so refreshing though? Like when
Yeah,
I was watching
I
it, I was going
great.
like, I wish there was more of this in politics. You're allowed to fuck up. Corbyn's like probably the one that annoys me the most about it. Just own your shit.
Yeah.
Stop putting this, oh, maybe I like Remain, maybe I don't. Like, just own it. And if you do fuck up, people in politics
It's all
have made
right
mistakes.
to change your mind.
Exactly,
it's all right
yeah.
to have been stupid. When I was 17, I believed in astrology. It makes my skin crawl now to think about it. But I was 17 and I was a moron. I didn't know any better. I can distinctly remember the point at which I stopped being agnostic and started being atheist, because I made some comment about God and a friend of mine went, "What, do you believe in God?" And I went away and thought about it for 3 days, right, and properly fucking thought about it and went and reached the end of the thought process and went, no, I don't. Yeah. But up until that point, nobody'd ever asked me. So it had just been this vague thing. I didn't really believe in religion. I didn't believe in anything particularly, but I'd never actually paid any attention. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to think about things and reach a different conclusion. I hate that people won't actually say, yeah, I used to think that, and then I thought about it and I realised I was wrong.
Yeah, well, I did it with Jeremy Corbyn, like, you know, when he was on the
Yeah, I
rise
thought
and
Jeremy
the Corbyn
Corbyn
wave
was
was
all right.
occurring.
He's
Like,
a bit
And I
different
thought
from
about
God.
it and I was wrong.
he is a bit different from God.
Just a naughty boy.
He's not the Messiah.
I am not Jesus, though I have the same initials as Jarvis Cocker once wrote.
Yeah, I mean, I was wrong about Corbyn, but on the way up, you know, I advocated for it. But once it became absolutely apparent that this man was not
He
the
was
Messiah,
just magic grandpa.
I absolutely owned the mistake, said I was completely wrong. This is the biggest regret I've ever had in politics. Everyone that told me he's just going to be like all the other Labour people were completely correct. They were all right. I wrongly believed he was going to change everything. And I know I'm not alone with that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Barry Black said, you know, in that speech, I don't know if it was at the SNP conference, where she
Said,
just...
I'm so disappointed in
And
Jeremy
it was
Corbyn.
just like, yes... Yeah. That's exactly what I feel. But, you know, even she was taken in with it evidently as well.
Well,
And it's okay to admit
I
you're
wanted
wrong.
England. I wanted England to have somebody good. They just, do you know what I mean? It would be nice to have somebody show
There
some
must be
leadership.
somebody in that country of how many million people that's relatively okay at politics and might have some sense of moral decency.
Caroline
That's all we
Lucas. There's Caroline Lucas. That's it, isn't there? I mean, who else is there? I mean, she's lovely. She's a bit wet and green. But who else is there? There's Caroline Lucas.
Decent people don't go into politics. That's the problem.
That's true.
I do quite like Jess Phillips, if I'm honest.
We're
She's
fucking
not
off on a
fucking
total
golden,
tangent
but-
now, but you were talking in the podcast previously about your fandom for David Lammy.
Yeah, I do like David
Is that
Lammy,
consistent?
actually.
Is that changed?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen anything
Got
yet.
a bit of a stushy about was it Children Need or Comic Relief?
Oh yeah, no, I was totally on his side, but that fucking what's her face, Stacey Doolin,
Dooley.
is it? Or Dooley,
Dooley.
Stacey Dooley. She's a fucking imbecile. She's an absolute. My husband in particular absolutely fucking hates her. It was him that raised her with me like a couple of years ago. He said she does all these sort of expose documentary things, and he says, and it's just her trotting all over the place, going, "Oh, isn't it awful?" That's like the extent of the fucking reportage. She's a fucking moron. And David Lammy is quite right. There's this sort of the white saviour going out to Africa holding the babies, and we're going to bring the money and all the rest of it. Why don't we just fucking pay our taxes properly and pay them properly for their resources and stop fucking them over? Why don't we relieve their debt? Why don't we stop being dicks? Instead, no, we'll have comic relief and we'll send a white person over to jiggle a black baby. He's fucking right.
I was over in Ghana.
Fuck him.
Yeah, I was over in Ghana like 2 years ago. 'Cause my dad does charity work, out there. I was over one of the last trips. And, I don't understand how these celebrities can be so fucking brazen about it. Because when you are out there, you're very aware of how good you have it back home.
I'll bet.
You're also very aware that you're white. You're very aware that you're not from Ghana, which is all, fine. And that's the feelings that you probably should be having in
Yes.
that environment. So the way these people turn up in, quite expensive clothing often are like, look at this, they haven't got any fucking water. That's a bit shit, isn't it? Do you want to chuck them some money? Oh my God, just shut the fuck up. You should be going out there to listen, not to talk at these people.
If you're not going out there with a container full of food and fucking water purification tablets, I'm not fucking interested.
Moreover, as well, why do we have to hear, and this is, I think, the point David Lammy was making, is why do we have to hear it from this white person? When I went over, I very consciously, and I'm a person that likes to fucking talk, really just shut the fuck up when I was over there and listened as much as possible, because that's, well, one, you can learn, and two, you don't want to be the person that goes well, have you thought about doing this or anything like that? And those circumstances. And
We thought moving closer to the water.
shit like that.
Remember Coney 2012?
Oh yes, I remember Coney 2012. The guy that made that, did he not end up just having a wank in the street?
Yeah, this is a story. It was a charity this guy, his pal had set up. They'd been in Africa once and thought they knew everything. So Joseph Kony is this kind of warlord guy. Can't remember which country it is. And so they wanted to capture him, get him stopped, and get all the children freed and stuff. So kind of a not bad idea, but
a couple of problems I can foresee.
Everything was they just spent all their money on going on trips back and forward to Africa, and I think there was something about gun running as well, or some massive fraudulent thing going on, and also the thing just snowballed because one of the early Twitter phenomenons.
Yeah, it's for weeks this was the thing on YouTube. Every video on YouTube was talking about Coney 2012. I mean, at one point it really was the biggest thing on social media. I don't know if it ever went onto the mainstream news, but in terms of the internet, this was huge. And of course,
it was totally out of control for these two stupid guys who were just not competent and doing it right, and of course all collapsed in itself. There's all these articles suddenly came out about how they were doing it all wrong and everything, and the guy had a kind of mental breakdown and then just had a wank in the middle of the main street of his town.
It was filmed. This wasn't this was filmed.
I'm gonna jack it where the sun always shines. Gonna jack it. Been spreading the word and now I need to ease my mind. Jacking it home. Been planting them apple seeds and while the apples grow, I'm gonna go out jacking it in San Diego. Jacking it, jacking it, jacking it, jack. Spanking it, jacking it, spanking it, smack. I don't need no shirt, no. Gonna take them pants right off. He's about to jack it. On such a bright day, who needs underwear or socks? Jack it, jack it home. Been around God's country and there's one thing I know. There's no better place for jacking it than San Diego. Jack it, jack it, jacket it, jack. Spanking it, spanking it, smacking it, smack. Jacking it, jacking it, jacking it, jack. Jacking it, spanking it, spanking it, smack. Come to San Diego, there's so much to see. From the sparkling waters of Mission Bay to the warm tortillas of Old Town. And after a day of sightseeing, why not try spanking it in one of our charming city streets? San Diego, come, take a load off. Jacking it, jacking it, jacking it, jack. Spanking it, smacking it, smack. A whacking it, whacking it, whacking it, whack. Spanking it, jerking it, smacking it, smack. The cars are passing me by, they honk and say hello. Hey, that guy's jacking it. From his window, there's a guy shooting video of him jacking. And if the good Lord Jesus comes knocking on my door, just tell him that I'm jacking it in San Diego. Jacking it, jacking it, jacking it, jack. Spanking it, smacking it, smack. He's about to jack it. Jacking it, jack, jacking it, jack. waggity, 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 spank, spank, spankity, waggity, spanky, waggity, jaggity, waggity, waggity, spank, spank, waggity, waggity, saggity, who's about to San Diego, jack, jack, waggity, 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 San Diego, waggity, keep on San Diego, jack, jack, jaggity, San Diego, waggity, 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 jaggity, jaggity, waggity, jaggity, waggity, San Diego, jack, jack, waggity, waggity, spank, San Diego.